Welcome to Out of Spec Reviews. My name is Benjamin, and this is the 2021 Kia Sorento. For 2021, Kia's redesigned the Sorento, and this one's got something quite special compared to what you've seen before. It's a 1.6 liter turbocharged hybrid, and it has a conventional transmission, so it feels like a normal car to drive, but with a little extra electric torque. It's a great drivetrain, and we're going to get into that in a moment, but first we're going to start with the exterior of the car. This one's got driver's assistance features fitted, so you'll see there's a little radar down there. It's got the Kia Tiger Nose grille. LED headlights are standard on the EX Hybrid. The two inner ones here for your high beams, and you've got nice LED running lights. Unfortunately, do have halogen turn signals. Coming around to the side, we've got 17-inch alloy wheels. They're sort of an aerodynamic hybrid design. Quite small, very big balloon tires, but the ride is excellent, so you can't fault them there. And they're Nexen tires, oddly enough. Not a brand that is as big as others, but they feel as good as any Michelin I've been in. So now we're going to take a look at the back, get a look at the trunk space. At the back, we find power tailgate. This has two different speeds you can set, and we're going to try and see how big a difference that really makes, because I've never felt on any car I've ever been in that I needed to adjust the speed of the power trunk. Got tons of space. This one is the 4+2 configuration, so you've got a total of 6 seats. Third row is really easy to put up, assuming you don't put that other seat all the way back. Not a ton of room behind it when they're up, but still pretty good given the size of this car. We've got, even just in case, tiny bit of extra storage right there in the bins on the side, and your tools. Moving to the inside, I have to admit, this is an area where this vehicle's not geared to me. I don't need 3 rows of seats. I don't have children to haul around, but this is a really nice place to be. The seats are super comfortable in the second row. They've got adjustability very far forward and aft, as well as some nice ratcheting armrests. And when you've got your door closed there, you got a cup holder, you got everything you need. And there's some pretty cool tech back here too. We have USB ports in the back of the seats. I like that. There's another one there. You've got a 12 volt. So like everyone's taken care of. And then there's these little nets on the insides of the seats just to put smaller items, phones, whatever it may be. You've got a nice large panoramic sunroof, and it's just a genuinely nice place to be. This lighter interior especially really makes it feel quite big in here. And then we get on to the third row, which is an area of a car that I will probably never need, but there's a small button over here to make doing so easier. It's okay. This is where things are not quite as amazing as something like an XC90 or much bigger 3-row vehicles. But there's enough room. The only real issue as comfort goes is these seats are a little close to the ground. So if you've got long legs like me, you're kind of just in the fetal position, you know, like in an airplane crash. But more USB ports, another outlet. So every row's got at least 3 points of power, which is great. And they've got these little hooks on the side that hold the seat belts in, both for the third and second row, to make it easier to get in and out of. I would say you probably want the captain's chairs though, because if there was a bench there, you would just have so little room in the back. I mean, you can see here if we go. Like, I have room at this point, but does the person sitting here really? Probably not. Inside the Sorento, the front's actually a pretty nice place to be. I was really surprised. The seats are really comfortable. This, I think it's called Syntex synthetic leather or something like that. Feels fine. It actually seems like it wears really hard and would be easy to clean. Everything you see, other than this leather wrap steering wheel, is pretty much all plastic. But it's not all bad news, because a lot of it is on the top level, kind of the softer touch style. None of this is real metal, but it looks much nicer than making that all gloss black plastic like most other makers are kind of doing these days. Got kind of fun little toggles for your heated seats there. There's a nice big storage bin in here for your phone. Wireless charging pad, little storage area within that, and then 3 USB ports. Only one of them, though, does connect to this if you're doing like plug-in wired CarPlay or Android Auto. The screen has not huge amounts of function, but I think anyone who's buying this, they're just going to want to have their music. They're going to want to be able to have Apple CarPlay. Maybe they'll check out the hybrid statistics and see where the power flow is going. You can also see that on this driver display we'll get into in a minute. Cup holders are kind of a weird squarish shape, but they hold water just fine. You know, nothing tips over in them. There's a storage bin behind it. This thing's huge. You can fit an entire like GoPro camera kit and everything you'd ever need to film this review right in there, other than a tripod. You've got a kind of rotary drive mode selector. When it's in reverse, it does, I don't know if you can hear that, make this kind of weird chime. Not so sure about that. You know, I guess it's a hybrid, they want something, but it doesn't seem super necessary. Like these air vents, I think it's a funky design. It's got kind of cool vents. You've got this really neat kind of chevron textured pattern there, and on the doors by the door handles and everything. There's a bit of gloss black around here that might be empty looking, but on some of the higher trims, the hybrid only comes in this one trim level here that we're in as the highest, but in the gas cars you can get a much bigger display that fills that up more. There is, I don't know if you can see it here, it extends past this gauge cluster and has another little bit of plastic, almost as if it's continuing this sort of same flow, but there's just nothing there. It's purely a styling item. I really do wish maybe some of the controls that are by my knee here for the trunk, the brightness of the gauge cluster, or the lane departure warning, maybe they just put them there to fill that in more. This doesn't look out of place, but it just seems like it'd be nice to put something there more than anything else. Going into the screen though, you've got not a ton of menus going on here. It is very customizable. Like if we go into our setup, you can actually change that home display's layout. So if we go to home screen, they'll let you choose what's on either side. You get kind of a larger and a smaller display you can control. And then that lower panel, you can also drag and drop features that matter more to you there, which is quite nice. There aren't really a whole lot of functions in it other than, you know, it's got a voice memo function if you want to record up to 128 megabytes of your favorite memos. There's this star key that you can program to be pretty much anything you want in the car. I've set it up to just be a home button, because the one thing I found when I was going through these menus is the only way to get to your home screen is to hit that button there, and when you're moving on a really rough road, it could be a little hard to hit that in motion. Your hybrid display here gives you your average fuel economy since you had last reset it. We've been kind of driving the car hard, but on commuting, I was seeing like 38, 39 miles per gallon, which is really impressive for a bit of highway and hilly city driving. This motor use kilowatt, I got really excited. I thought that was going to show me real-time information about how much output the electric motor is doing and, you know, regen, things like that. It seems to update that number every couple of minutes, and it's a number that is potentially maybe the average motor use over a 5-minute segment, but we're still not really sure, and sometimes it doesn't even give a reading. So it could just be that this is a very early car and it doesn't have all the software yet of a production vehicle, but that was a little unusual. You do also have, this is a really nice touch, your dedicated skip seat track buttons up there too, which makes it a little easier. And then here, the climate control panel is kind of a mix of physical buttons and then these capacitive style touch sensitive ones. It is the piano black, so it's more of a fingerprint magnet than most things. However, we haven't had to wipe this one off as much as we had to do in other cars we've seen, so it kind of gets a pass there in my book, at least. Again, you've got that same sort of toggle switch that is used for the seats, kind of up here for your climate. You do have 3 different strengths of the automatic program too, which is nice. And then this is mostly, I've seen it in the hybrids and EVs Kia offers, but the driver only, so it just uses the air on this side of the car to not waste energy cooling or heating other sides of the vehicle, which is nice. It does, however, pull its heat from the engine. It doesn't have an electric heater or anything like that. And the AC is obviously done off of an electric compressor for that too. But it's a good space to be. This steering wheel is probably one of the nicest parts of the interior. It's a really nice smooth leather. It's got a nice kind of quality stitching on the inside. You do have shift paddles, And I quite honestly think they're very pointless because you can't see your RPM. You've just got your EV power meter here. I've gone through everything in this display. I could not find anywhere to get a digital tachometer either. So you can change gears and maybe listen to the engine, but it's such a quiet engine, you could just be revving it, you know, to the moon and not really know. So I'm not certain why they've included that, but you can tow with this. So maybe it might be nice on a hill to get a little bit of engine braking, but that 1.6 liter engine's not going to cause a whole lot of drag, you know, going down the hill. This is also where we've got our controls for the steering assistant, which you can have it steer while you're on the highway or any road, and you don't necessarily have to be using cruise control. So you can choose to have it help steer you down the road no matter what surface street you're on or what mode of cruise you're in. You also have 4 distance settings. They are toggle though, so it's, you press it and it goes 4, 3, 2, 1, and you press again and it loops back. I would like a closer and further option there, but at this price point, I think forgivable. And this is also your screen here, controls for the infotainment in the dashboard, where you have a few different bits of information you can cycle between. But most of the time, I think drivers will have their digital speedometer or their driver's assistance view here, which will show how close the car in front is for the adaptive cruise control. I've gone through settings in here and I've found quite a few though. You can do everything for your driver's assistance through here, and boy, everything. You can actually have, when this car detects someone driving behind you and you're reversing out of a spot, it will vibrate the steering wheel to let you know, as well as give you an audible and visual alert on the screen. When it does that, it shakes the whole car. It's like sitting, you know, imagine you were this big and you sat on someone's cell phone when they were getting a phone call and it was in vibrate mode. The whole car shook. It was kind of amazing. So you're definitely not going to reverse into anyone with this. You're well covered in that area for sure. Let's see, how do we get out of here? There's no back buttons. You always have to kind of scroll back to the top. You can go through quite a few other things in here. They have a theme selection, but it really only changes like the font of the gear or speed you're going. Like if I change it here, it changes a tiny bit of the background, but its biggest change is really just the, you can kind of hardly see it, is the lettering, but at least they let you have a little customization. In the gas version of the car, the plain gas turbo one, SX, you actually can get a full driver display here that's all digital. I suspect some of those things are more useful there. And that might even be why the paddles don't have a digital tachometer function, because that might be only in that higher trim level car. But this is really what we're kind of interested in. Under, I think it's door? Power lift gate, yeah. So you can choose how fast you want the trunk to open. I don't know anyone who's ever thought that they needed to change it, but we're going to do a little test and we're going to see how much time you can save in your life by having it set to fast rather than normal. So why don't we go check that out? Because that's really more important before we drive anything. Now set it to fast.
I'll wait.
That's noticeable.
That is noticeably faster.
Now, we're going to try, see how this thing actually drives. So the best part of this car, in my opinion, is the fact that you've got an automatic transmission that's normal. It's a 6-speed auto. You don't have all of the ECVT weirdness. That means when you explain, you don't hear as the engine just sits at a high RPM and kind of doesn't change as you accelerate. So here we're going to go accelerate for a moment. You'll just hear it. It's super quiet, first off, with the electric torque. And then as we accelerate, we're going to get a gear change. Well, eventually. Actually, it was, the electric motor did a lot of work there. I think we went from about 1500 RPM to the red line with that assistance. It almost doesn't need to change gears sometimes. I think that was in 6th gear almost. But the ride is excellent. Those balloon tires are awesome. You know, it means you've got such a smooth ride, even on this surface, which is imperfect. We're gonna hit an expansion joint or two here on this bridge. Very comfortable car to be in, I think. Here, we'll get a little more of downshift from it. There you go. That's, I mean, it's such a quiet powertrain. You don't really have a lot of noise coming from it. And a lot of times you can drive this thing almost in EV form if you want. Every time you coast and let go of the gas, it shuts the engine off no matter what you're doing. So you can kind of let off, goes into EV mode, and then kind of, as long as you're doing it gently, get and maintain or even accelerate with just the electric motor. It's about 44 kilowatts. It's not a small amount of power at all. In fact, that's, you know, like 60 or so horsepower coming from that alone, plus a lot of torque. So it makes for a really nice driving experience, especially at low speeds. You've got very good takeoff. The engine is, you know, off when you're at a stop. So when you floor it, you get this huge shove of electric torque, and it lights up the front tires a little bit, even with traction control on it. It spins them occasionally, and you know, it's probably doing 12 miles an hour before that gas engine's even turned on, which is kind of impressive how quickly it actually gets up and goes for what it is. Then you've got a really easy to modulate brake pedal. The regen, the brake blending, it doesn't feel strange at all. It feels really like a normal car that has just a lot more torque than a, you know, traditional vehicle in this class, really. The cornering's also kind of flat. You know, it's not a sports car, not trying to be, obviously, but when you go around a bend, it doesn't feel like it's going to tip over at all, and it's got a pretty flat handling, you know, characteristic still. And it's, you know, the steering's light, easy to use, it's very inoffensive. Like, you know, I have no need for a car like this, but if I was going to take, you know, like 4 people or something like that, and I needed a rental car and we were going to hit Disney World or something, this is the car you want to do it in. It's kind of perfect for that, really. It's got just the right amount of technology and safety to make sure you're comfortable, but also a really nice powertrain for what it is. It's not quite as grumbly like here, so we're accelerating kind of at a pretty moderate pace. It almost feels like you're in an electric car most of the time, unless you're like flooring it. You know, it's a very good balance. And here we go, here's an on-ramp. We're going to take advantage of the sport setting here, which makes a very small difference, but it's got it, so we're gonna try it out. Let them get a little bit of a gap here first. All right, so I'm gonna put foot to the floor. That's 50, 60, 70 almost already, yeah. 78, I mean, it picks up very quickly for what it is. It's, we were driving the Genesis GV80 the other day, and that's a 300 horsepower, so it's another 70 horsepower more than this car. Oh, let me set my steering. Don't want to work too hard. And another 70 horsepower than this car, and up at speed, it didn't feel a whole lot faster to me than this does. And I think it's really due to that electric torque that it's got to take advantage of. Now this, as you can probably hear, is maybe the only downside to the car I find driving, is it's, depending on the road you're on, a lot of road noise, a lot more wind noise than most other luxury type cars, but this is, again, $34,000 or so it's not really that big of a... $38,000, as I've just been corrected. So it's not really the kind of car where you would expect the quietest ride. And this is a pretty loud surface we're on. Oh, and it's, by the way, taking this corner on its own just fine. This is a very rough type of pavement, but we should get quieter here. There you go, on some nicer tarmac. Some of that could be down to tires, but I think it's really mostly down to the lack of noise insulation around the wheel wells. You hear a little bit of wind noise kind of coming from door seals, things like that. But it's a great trip car. On the highway here, I mean, I can pretty much do nothing. You know, it does a very good job steering itself down the road. It's telling me the speed limit that is it's reading as we drive. And you can go at an insanely long time without having to touch the steering wheel. So we're just going to start there and kind of see how long it's going to take us. We tried this a little bit earlier, and we hit a bump, and it reset itself because it thought I had touched the wheel. So it still hasn't prompted me at all. We're doing 70, you know, down the road here. It feels very confident in its lane centering. It hasn't like made any word. Okay, so now it's saying keep hands on steering wheel. It's blinking an orange kind of message at me, but I'm not getting any audible alert. It's still blinking that. Keep hands on wheel. Well, they're not on it, so let's see. There's an audible alert finally. Now it's red. And I think it kind of feels like it's wiggling the steering wheel a little bit on purpose there to maybe... It did that last time. It could be the road, or it could just be that that's how it tries to wake you up. And now I think we'll get to the point where it gets really angry at me. almost. There you go. So now it says lane following assist canceled, although it's actually still steering a little bit there. It's not giving up on me entirely. Now it's off. Now the only thing to help is the lane keeping assist. But it really lets you take advantage of it. And the nice thing is, unlike a Tesla, where when you do something like that, which is dumb, and it disables you for the whole drive, I can just hit that button again, takes a moment, and it picks up the lanes, and then I've got my lane assist again. So that's quite nice. And it does such a good job on a long trip. It really fundamentally gives you a similar feel and experience to much more expensive cars. And that's, I think, this car's strong point is this has so much driver assist technology on it. It doesn't feel like it's that cheap of a car compared to something like a BMW. You'd have to be at, you know, $50,000 in an X3 at least to have anything like this. So I think a lot of shoppers are going to be very happy with it for that reason alone. And let's see up here if we've got a nice off-ramp perhaps to throw it into a corner a little more. There we go. So here we're entering into the corner. And I mean, it really, I got a little ESP intervention there actually, but it's like, it handles really well for what it is. Like, these tires have way more grip than I would expect a tire in a car like this to have. Even on this really broken pavement still, it's a good compromise. I don't think you need the bigger wheels. I don't think I'd spend the money for them. I think I'd get the hybrid, which only comes on these wheels anyways, and almost ignore the turbocharged gas engines, although they do come with an 8-speed dual clutch, so that could be an interesting proposition. But I feel like as it stands, this just does such a, you know, it does such a good job, and everything about it is unoffensive. Like, you can't really fault it much. Like, they do a lot of logical things with the way the buttons and controls are laid out. All my media is here, all my driving and vehicle stuff is on this side, so it's well segmented there. When you have your Apple CarPlay, this volume or the voice key will let you actually bring up Siri or Google Assistant without taking your hands off the wheel, which is kind of nice. LED fog lights even, you know, it's pretty much all LED lighting on the front other than the turn signals. Rear tail lights are just the normal incandescent, but they've got a bit of a filter on them, so it almost looks like it's a LED light from a distance, which is kind of nice. So at least it still fits visually very well. But I think this is a great car. You know, I don't know why, I'm almost in love with this powertrain so much, because you can do so much of your driving with that electric motor. Even though it's not a plug-in hybrid, you don't charge it, you just put gas in it. Like, I'll take it on a cruise here just to do it. So right now we're going 68 miles an hour. The engine's off, we're in EV mode still. I'm going to bring up the speed here. We're going 68, let's see, picking up slowly. Yeah, and now we're on a slight uphill, and I'm maintaining that speed with the engine off here. I mean, that's what most other hybrids seem to be missing. There's 69, we're gaining speed up the hill now. So many other hybrids have just a kind of weak electric motor, and since this has such a strong one, you get that beautifully smooth torque when you go to accelerate. It means the engine's not working hard, and therefore the engine's very quiet. It's not revving itself to bits. It just seems to make sense to do it this way. And that battery pack they've got has a very quick discharge rate to allow for that, and a very quick charge rate. I think a comparable car to this would be something like you've got like the Nissan Pathfinder or other cars in that segment. But to look at a hybrid, you've got Toyota's Highlander is now a hybrid system, and that car, it doesn't use a lithium-ion battery. It's using a nickel metal hydride battery, which is a little bit of an older technology. Those batteries do have slightly better cold weather performance, but it's not a huge deal when you're in a gas hybrid and not a plug-in hybrid where you're driving on electric purely. And that lithium battery gives it that beautiful benefit of that quick power discharge and quick charge under braking, so that it can give you that very continual electric torque. And I've even tried to see if I can run it. It's a small battery, it's only 1.5 kilowatt hours. You know, by just doing repeated accelerations, you can eventually kind of drain that battery down. There's a little indicator I have here, in fact, that shows me that charge level. It almost always hovers between 60-75%, like right in that area. And you can kind of drain it down, but it doesn't seem to lose steam that much because of that. And you'd have to be, you know, towing something up a massive hill to get to that point. So this car, for me, 2 thumbs up. Never thought I would be a huge fan of a 3-row crossover hybrid SUV, but this thing's great. If you're shopping for one of these, I think definitely test drive the hybrid. I don't see any reason to, unless you need the all-wheel drive system, I don't see any reason to skip on the hybrid, truthfully, because this powertrain is quick. 0 to 60 7.7 seconds, which is fairly fast for a car in this segment, I would think. You know, I don't know the 0 to 60 times of most cars in the segment, but I mean, we're still at EV mode, and that's some pretty good acceleration. Now the engine's just kicked over. This thing's great. Check it out.